Welcome back, everybody, to the Tennessee Titans franchise here on Madden 23. Today we will be previewing the 2024 NFL Draft as we're going to go through all of the positions and a lot of the players in the draft class here for one last time, and then we're going to be talking about some mock drafts as well. Last episode we went through free agency and we made quite a few moves. We traded away Zach Cunningham, we acquired Andrew Thomas, we franchise tagged Derrick Henry, we signed Chidobe Awuzie, and we brought back some other familiar faces as well. Around the league, there were a lot of big-time moves, including Chris Godwin to the Bucks, Mike Williams to the Giants, Dallas Goedert to the Raiders, Javon Holland to the Jags, and most notably, Tua Tagovailoa to the Giants, with the Dolphins signing Jalen Hurts as a replacement. So as we go into this draft preview, I want to take a look at what picks we have. We've got 2 in the first and 2 in the second, so we've got a real opportunity to add some game-changing talent to our team. Let's go positional here, starting off at quarterback, and as I have said throughout the year, it is an unbelievably talented quarterback class from top to bottom. You've got 6 guys projected in the first round, and that starts with the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, Cade Hutchinson, who is the projected number 1 pick as of now. Cade Hutchinson gives you all you look for in your prototypical quarterback: size, arm strength, accuracy, poise in the pocket, and mobility. Hutchinson was deemed the chosen one since his freshman year at Clemson, and statistically has had maybe the most impressive career of any quarterback in college football history. Everything was aligning for him to have the perfect collegiate career until the national championship this year, where he played horribly against TCU, throwing 3 interceptions, leading Clemson to losing the game. So there are some scouts questioning Hutchinson's ability in big games, because that was the biggest game of his career, and he completely laid an egg. The Minnesota Vikings had the number 1 pick. They did not add a quarterback in the offseason, so you'd think that would make a lot of sense as a landing spot, but they may go in another direction if they're disappointed with his national championship performance. There are plenty of other really good QBs here, including Bartholomew Blount out of Michigan. He was phenomenal as a junior a couple years ago, finishing in second place for the Heisman Trophy. This past season as a senior, he was a little bit disappointing, but still is very, very solid and has cemented himself as likely the second quarterback off the board and a possible top 5 pick. I think the Colts, Texans, and Commanders are all really good fits for him. Maybe there's a team who moves up in order to get a guy like Bartholomew Blount as well. I think that is certainly possible. He's a big-arm quarterback, not the most consistent in terms of accuracy, but he's got a cannon, he's athletic, and I think he's got a really high ceiling. Kane Sanders has been the draft darling of the year, if you will. He opened up the season as a projected day 3 pick, but he had a fantastic season for Houston, finishing second in Heisman Trophy voting, and is now being looked at as a top 10 pick. He led Houston to the college football playoff, where he ended up playing very well in their loss against Oklahoma. The notable thing about that game, however, is that Sanders suffered a hip injury in the fourth quarter on this sack by Amari Donaldson, who has since transferred to LSU. Sanders hurt his hip on this play. He was taken out for the rest of the game, and he has spent the last few months rehabbing, leading him to missing the scouting combine. He wasn't able to participate in his pro day, where he did a pretty good job, along with obviously his arm talent, his accuracy, and his arm strength are leading him to possibly being a potential top 10 pick. As we move down the board, we're looking at some more fringe first-rounders. Keep in mind, the Titans have 2 first-rounders, and maybe they feel that one of these guys can be the quarterback of the future. We'll start with Isaiah Gordon out of Kentucky, who started the season off on fire, and at one point, he was the favorite to be the second quarterback off the board, passing Bartholomew Blount. He came back down to earth in the second half of the season, but was still very solid. This is a guy who can make just about every throw. He's mobile, he's athletic, he's got a pretty strong arm, and I think he is what you look for in a franchise quarterback. So I think as of now, he'll probably be a mid to late first-round pick when it's all said and done. I think you might be looking at teams like the Jets and the Falcons with Gordon. Sidney McDonald very quietly had a great season for the Auburn Tigers. We did not go into as much detail about Auburn in the NCAA Next Up series because Auburn was never really a title contender, But Sidney McDonald was fantastic. He is a very NFL-ready quarterback. He's a perfect pro-style guy. He doesn't have incredible mobility. He doesn't normally win out of structure and under pressure. So you need to have good offensive linemen in front of him. But when he has time to throw, he can make every throw in the book. He's got one of the strongest arms in this class. He's got pinpoint accuracy. And he's one of the best pure throwers of the football in this year's draft. DeAndre Smith from Mississippi State really skyrocketed up draft boards, leading Mississippi State's air raid offense. Now, some scouts question, is it the system or is it DeAndre Smith being really good? Personally, I lean towards the latter. I think DeAndre Smith is the real deal. Another guy who can make every throw in the book. He has mobility, although his rushing stats were unimpressive. He did run a pretty good time at the combine. With a solid arm and really good accuracy, I think this is another guy who could be looked at in the late first round. Let's try to find some gems down the board. I think we've got to start with Sterling Yorkshire out of TCU, who came out of nowhere this season to lead TCU to the national championship, winning the college football playoff MVP. Sterling Yorkshire was fantastic throughout the college football playoff. He played very well against Cal and Florida, and then, of course, in the championship game against Clemson. He wasn't perfect. He actually threw 3 interceptions in this matchup against the Tigers, but other than that, he was great as a thrower and as a runner. He's a little bit inconsistent as a passer, and that happens considering he's only a one-year starter, but he's got a really solid arm, very athletic, good mobility. So there are some things you need to work on with him because he's only started for 1 year, but I think he could be really good. And then somebody who's probably going to go on day 3, who I think really could exceed his draft slot, is Luca Franco out of Texas. Franco just wrapped up his redshirt junior season and left school early to declare for the draft. Another guy who didn't play on a great team, but very quietly had a great season for the Aggies. He's not an elite athlete, but he's got a very solid arm, pretty accurate as well. So I think if he can continue to develop, he could be a really good pro prospect. There are some solid quarterbacks down the board even further who are going to be day 3 picks. Bryson Byrne from Alabama was kind of wasted in a poor system, but I think there is some upside. And then even the undrafted guys, there's a lot of talent here. As we move over to running back, I think this is the strongest position group in this draft class. Very rarely do you see 3 running backs projected to go in the first round in today's modern NFL. As we start with Elijah Bryant, who is the most well-rounded of the bunch. Bryant does not have as much pure explosiveness as some of the other top backs do, but he doesn't really have many weaknesses to his game. He's quick, he's agile, he's athletic, he's powerful. This is a physical, tough runner of the football, and he's one of the best pass-catching backs in the draft. In order to be a successful running back in the modern NFL, you've got to be able to catch the football and run routes out of the backfield, and there aren't many in this class who do that better than Elijah Bryant. So no, he doesn't have the raw speed and explosiveness that some of these other guys do. He does have good speed and explosiveness, it's just not necessarily elite. His well-roundedness makes him a very high floor and safe player, but I think he's got a really high ceiling too, and very well could be one of the best backs in the league. When you talk about speed and explosiveness, look no further than Dr. Antoine, who single-handedly has carried the Rutgers football program for the last 3 seasons, essentially. Antoine has been one of the most fun players to watch and follow in college football. He can make anybody miss with his unbelievable barrel carrier moves, his speed, his quickness, his explosiveness. He's a pretty good pass catcher as well. He has solid size and length too, so he really gives you everything you look for out of the backfield. So I think his ability to essentially carry an offense like he did at Rutgers is going to be very valuable. And because of that, I think a team will end up picking him in the first round with his incredible body of work, while his best football, in my opinion, is still ahead of him. He tore up the combine with a 4.39 40. At his pro day, he ran a 4.36. You think that is good? Well, Florida State's Brody Kluge ran even faster. Kluge will likely be the 3rd running back off the board, whether that's late in the first round to a contending team or early in the second round. This is another guy who thrives off of explosiveness and speed. He ran a 4.31 40-yard dash at the combine, the fastest time amongst all running backs, and at his pro day, he ran a 4.27. Keep in mind, pro day numbers can be a little bit misleading. So, did he actually run a 4.27? I don't know. But I think it's safe to say this guy has lightning speed and quickness. Another guy who I think has a real shot at being a first-round pick. Noel Hilaire has had a great season for the Oregon offense, a team who thrives themselves on running the football with the engine being Noel Hilaire. Another guy who wins with speed and explosiveness. He ran a 4.32 at the combine with a 4.27 at his pro day, so pretty much identical speed numbers to Brody Kluge. I don't think he's quite as fast as Kluge in game, but his speed and explosiveness is one of a kind. Kobe Henderson from Clemson's a very fascinating case. High recruit at Clemson who really played well early. Last season as a junior, he tore his Achilles, and that's a big injury for running backs. It took a little while for him to get back going this year as a senior, but as the season went along, he really got back into a rhythm. He played well in the college football playoff, but he got injured and missed most of the semifinal game against Middle Tennessee State. On the bright side, he was healthy for the championship against TCU, where he played really well. He was probably the only guy on the Clemson offense to play really well against TCU, if we're being honest. The next guy we're going to look at is Kyle McCloskey out of the University of Alabama. The Crimson Tide have a long lineage of power backs who have entered the league. Look at guys like Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, and Najee Harris, who are three of the best running backs in the league. Kyle McCloskey is next up on the list. In terms of collegiate production, he's arguably had a better college career than all three of those guys I just named. He runs a 4.4, which is impressive for how big and physical he is. He's not much of the receiver, but he's a very tough, physical runner. Going down the board, there are plenty of other good running backs here like McDaniels, Raymond, and Murphy. I want to take a look at Joshua Calico, though, out of Michigan State. The Spartans run an air raid type of offense, so they don't really lean on their running back. So because of that, I feel like Josh Calico has kind of been a little bit misused. He has been a focal point in the pass game, so this is somebody who's a very capable receiver. And when he gets the ball out of the backfield, he's a big play threat. It's just that Michigan State did not get him the ball enough. I think if an NFL team uses Joshua Calico right, he could be a really, really good player. One of my favorite storylines over the past couple of seasons in college football has been the emergence of the Georgia Bulldogs, and specifically running back Patalomayo Malawalu, who was the college football playoff MVP a couple seasons ago when he was a junior. In the semifinals against Middle Tennessee State, he scored 6 all-purpose touchdowns, and he added 3 more in the national championship game against South Alabama. This year as a senior, he had a lot of expectations, and he didn't reach those expectations, but it's not really his fault. He got injured pretty early into the year. He missed most of the season, so we didn't really get to see him play a whole lot. I thought he did pretty well at the combine, but his stock has actually gone a little bit lower since the end of the season. I think scouts are a little bit concerned about his long-term health, so obviously that'll be something to keep an eye on. But I think as probably a 3rd to 4th round pick, he could be a really, really good pro. If he can do what he did during the college football playoff, look out. This guy could be a very good running back at the next level. As we try to find some gems down the board, one of the most fascinating running backs in this class is Syracuse's Afewerk Chike. He's 6'3", 190 pounds. He's a long, wiry-framed kid with super long arms. He's got a body of a wide receiver, and I feel like he would have a good NFL career if you lined him out at receiver. 4.3 speed. He's a little bit raw in terms of knowing what to do as a running back, so maybe you line him up at receiver a lot. There are some interesting players even further down the board as well here, running back. It's just a loaded group all around. I think the Titans are definitely going to look to add one at some point during the draft. As we look at wide receiver, Bryce Berry III has been wide receiver 1 for most of the year. And although I wouldn't say it's a lock, I think chances are he will be the top receiver off the board, and he deserves it. 6'2", 195 pounds. He's pretty fast and athletic. This guy just knows how to get open. He knows how to play wide receiver, and he just passes the eye test. He's not necessarily super dynamic and explosive. He did run a 4.49 at the combine, which isn't a bad number for him. It's not elite, but it's certainly solid for his skill set. D'Aiden Washington from Texas is a little bit more raw. As a sophomore a couple years ago, he was outstanding. At just 19 years old, he was one of the best receivers in college football. As a junior, he kind of struggled, and as a senior, he started the year off slowly, but as the year went along, he really looked like a star once again. He tested very well at the combine, and I think if you look at his 4.36 speed with his 6'4" frame, this kid's got the highest ceiling of any wide receiver in this draft. It's just a matter of staying consistent, which has been an issue for D'Aiden Washington in his college career at Texas. Romeo Gardner was a total star for Mississippi State. He's 5'10", so he doesn't really have great size. He's not necessarily a freak athlete. He doesn't have great speed, but this is another guy who knows how to get open. He knows how to play receiver. He's got good hands, and he plays big. He's 211 pounds. He's a thick, tough football player. And you normally, when you see toughness in receivers, it's the ability to go up and make contested catches. Gardner can do that despite his 5'10" frame, and I think he's going to be a really intriguing player at the next level. Shai Jones-Porter just recently declared for the draft as a junior. He's been spectacular for the Penn State offense, without a doubt the best player on that football team over the last couple of seasons. This is another guy who doesn't have game-breaking speed, but he's a phenomenal route runner. He's got great hands, and he is a problem for defenses after the catch. He doesn't win with speed, but he wins with quickness, elusiveness, and his ability to change direction so quickly. He's got such fluid hips and is just a nuisance with the ball in his hands. Hector Estrada III from Arizona State, I think, is a really solid prospect. His combination of collegiate production with athleticism and upside is really interesting. He's got good size and length. He tested pretty well at the combine. And this is a guy who has consistently produced in his career at Arizona State, particularly as a junior. He played a little bit poorly over the last 6 or so games this season, but he made up for it with a 4.34 40-yard dash at the combine. TK Thomas from Michigan has a shot to be a really good player, but he just hasn't been consistent during his collegiate career. 6'5", 230 pounds. He's big, he's fast, he's athletic. Going into the year, he was projected as a first-rounder. Many scouts expected him to break out and finally turn into a star, and that didn't happen. He wasn't bad, per se, this year, but he didn't take the step up that, say, a guy like Romeo Gardner from Mississippi State did. Despite that, teams are enamored with TK Thomas's size and athleticism, and although the floor is low, the ceiling is very, very high. Jordan Jones from Clemson has seen his stock rise up quite a bit. He's even more raw than TK Thomas. He's got a long ways to go in terms of his ability as a receiver, and you'd hope a guy with the Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback would do a little bit better. The thing with Jones is he's super big and he's super fast. Look at this play against Oregon, the Hail Mary to win in the quarterfinals of the playoffs. He just blew by everybody. Jones showed off that speed at the combine, running a 4.24, a faster time than anybody, and he matched that at his pro day with a 4.24. So scouts really like the upside, but he's got a long ways to go in terms of his development. There are plenty of other good receivers in the mid-rounds. Rashid Salid has been a hot name during the pre-draft process. His stock has gone up since the combine. Cassius Morris, Tyrese Barracon, and Bubu Drame are all very intriguing players. But I want to take a look at Quinn Crew from Texas A&M. He just wrapped up his redshirt sophomore season. He declared for the draft. He has very quietly been really good for the Texas A&M offense with 22 career touchdowns in just 2 seasons with the Aggies. This is a guy who I think is going to be a gem when it's all said and done. He's got really good speed, 4.31 at the combine, 4.24 at his pro day. This kid has really good moves with the ball in his hands, pretty good catching ability. He's got good hands, good route runner. There isn't really any concerns with this game, and I think teams are just overthinking him, and honestly, I think he should probably be a first or second round pick. As we move down the board even further, Nehemiah Dalton's a good player. Maxwell, Kendrickson, and Will are all very solid slot guys. Xavier Mayo's stock is up during the college football playoff. He performed really well. But I want to look at Hot Rod Pryor out of USC. He's 20 years old, the youngest players in the entire draft class. He's a little bit inconsistent. He doesn't have the greatest hands. He needs to improve as a route runner. But with the football in his hands, the kid is a playmaker. He doesn't necessarily have elite speed, 4.4 at the combine. He did run a 4.34 at his pro day. Again, pro day numbers can be a little bit misleading. But he's just such a weapon. And I think teams are really going to like him as a guy with some real upside in the 4th or 5th round. Plenty of interesting receivers down the board even further. Foshawn Burris could have been good had he been able to stay healthy this year. Deontay Perkins is a talented player. Guys who declared for the draft early, like Elijah McKay, Travis Bell, and Benjamin Cannon are all really solid too. Let's move over to tight end. A big need for the Titans, and luckily this is a really good tight end class featuring Latrell McAllister out of Clemson. He's 6'7". This guy's a rock. I mean, he is a large human being, and guys with his size should not be able to move the way he does. 4.6 40-yard dash, really good athlete, really consistent receiver, and he's a good blocker as well. Outside of Kyle Pitts, who's pretty much a unicorn, I don't think we've seen a tight end prospect better than him in the last 10 to 15 years. Mario Homler was the engine of the TCU offense, one of the most consistent players at his position in college football. He's got good athleticism, good size, and obviously the production with him is very high. He had a phenomenal season, really breaking out for the Horned Frogs as one of the big reasons why they were able to make their national championship run. He honestly was a little bit disappointing throughout the college football playoff. I expected more out of him, but he had a surprisingly impressive combine and pro day. Not that he's a bad athlete, but I didn't know he was that athletic until we saw him at the combine. Chad Johnson from Penn State has been very solid as well over the past couple of seasons. Another big, tall tight end who's a very, very good receiver. He's not as good of a blocker as the top two tight ends, so because of that, I think he'll be the third one off the board, probably more towards the early portion of the second round. Maybe he sneaks into the back end of the first round, but he's just a really, really good receiver, really good playmaker after the catch. Gunnar Wilson from Akron just declared for the draft. He originally went to Penn State, where he lost the starting job as a freshman to Chad Johnson. He transfers to Akron, where he is coming off a great sophomore season. This kid is a total freak show, an unbelievable athlete for his size. He doesn't have a large sample size. He's only been a starter for 1 year, but I think the ceiling with Gunnar Wilson is sky high. I think this kid has higher upside than maybe any tight end in this draft class, which says a lot considering there's 3 of them who are possibly projected to go into the first round. There are some solid gems down the board here at the tight end position. Will O'Neal, Dax Boss, Ezekiel Ayutondo. A lot of really, really solid guys here as we move over to the offensive line, looking at left tackle with 3 possible first-rounders. And that starts with Angelo Nix out of Minnesota, who honestly was the best offensive tackle in college football this year. The production with him was really impressive. He's a good pass blocker, good run blocker, good athlete. He just checks off all the boxes for what you look for on the offensive line and has a shot to be a franchise left tackle. With Taylor Lewan gone, the Titans very well could look to move up for him if they don't feel all that good about Andrew Thomas, who has been pretty bad for the Giants for the last couple of seasons. So it's not like Tennessee's got their franchise left tackle set or anything with the addition of Andrew Thomas. If they don't go for Angelo Nix, I think Chance Upshaw from NC State could be a very solid pick as a fringe first-rounder. He's not quite as good as Angelo Nix, but he's still very solid in his own right. He tested quite well at the combine, 33 reps on the bench. This guy moves really well for his size, good in pass pro, and I think he's going to be a really solid, probably late first-rounder. Solomon Fa'amate out of Oregon has seen his stock go up the past couple of months. He performed very well in the Big Ten Championship along with the college football playoff for the Ducks, and he's getting some real first-round looks at the offensive tackle position. He's really improved as a run blocker this past season, and one of the main reasons why the Oregon offense was so good on the ground. Steady pass blocker, good athlete, performed well at the combine, and I think he could be a sleeper to fall in the late first round. Got some solid players down the board here as well as we move over to left guard. Magnus Zimmerman is one of the best offensive guard prospects we've ever seen. Right up there with guys like Zach Martin and Quentin Nelson. What do these 3 players all have in common? They went to Notre Dame. Notre Dame knows a thing or two about developing these awesome athletes at guard into elite prospects. Zach Martin is well on his way to the Hall of Fame. Quentin Nelson has a good shot of joining him. And I think Magnus Zimmerman has a chance to get drafted higher than either of those guys did as a legitimate top 5 pick. I know guard isn't necessarily a valuable position, but he's such a good player, maybe the best pure football player in the draft. Sean Smith from Georgia is very solid as well. I think he'd be getting more hype if Magnus Zimmerman, didn't exist. But Sean Smith's a really solid player as well. Georgia's interior offensive line might be the best in the country, with Smith being the anchor at left guard. He had a solid combine, I think cementing himself at the very least as a top 50 pick. I think he probably ends up in the second round, but probably the high end of the second round. Got some solid late-round guys here as well. Bubu Kuyate, one of the youngest players in the draft who just recently declared. Dominic Sokolo from South Alabama is a real gem as an undrafted free agent. The center class is a little bit weak, but you do have some solid players here, including Benvolio Berkeley out of Syracuse. Good athlete, high production. He's not a lock to be the first center off the board, but I would say he probably should be the top player at his position to come off the board in the draft. He's an elite athlete. He tested off the charts at the combine. So I think that really shows his upside and his ability to be a very good player down the line. Got some other good centers not too far behind him, including Brian Forrest-Smith from Oklahoma and Carlisle Kaplan from Oregon. Let's move over to right guard. We already saw one Georgia guard who could be a first-rounder. Well, here's another one, Kenneth Scott, who's probably an even better prospect than Sean Smith, the Georgia left guard. Scott had a phenomenal senior season this year, one of the best guards in the country. He tested quite well at the combine, and I think he's got a real shot to be the second guard off the board and a possible first-round pick. Cornelius Jones out of Florida is a talented player. There are some character issues with this young man which are concerning some teams, and it even has him off of certain teams' draft boards. But the talent is there, and I think he could be a really good player at the next level. Some teams aren't as concerned about players' characters, cough, cough, Dallas. So I think he could be a really solid day 2 pick, tested off the charts at the combine. I think the upside with him is very high if he can stay out of trouble. Drondo Shock is one of my favorite day 3 gems in this class. I think he could be a starting right guard very early in his NFL career, coming from Ole Miss, an offense who has struggled over the last couple of years, but it's not at the fault of Shock. Solid athlete. He's not a freak. He didn't wow everybody at the combine, so not a lot of people are talking about him on their radars, but I think he could be a really good pro. In terms of the 5 offensive line positions, right tackle certainly is the most talent, as we start with Logan Capley out of the University of Alabama. Capley just finished a fantastic redshirt sophomore season where he's now declaring from the draft. He needs some more reps under his belt, but I think he's versatile. You can put him at right tackle. You can put him at left tackle. Very good athlete. Reminds me a lot of Evan Neal coming out of Alabama a few years ago, and I think he could go as high as Evan Neal did in the top 10. There are going to be multiple other right tackles who go in the first round, including Kalen Fonts out of Florida. 6'8", 344 pounds. This guy is just built like a bull. I mean, if you try to get around him, good luck. Kalen Fonts is a total monster, and I feel like his name is kind of going under the radar with Logan Capley's stock rising super high. But I think Kalen Fonts has got a legit shot at being a top 10 pick. Omar Irons is very solid as well out of Cal. 6'8", 305 pounds. At one point in the season, he was getting top 10 looks. I don't think he's going to go in the top 10, but I do think he's a really solid player. He produced at a pretty high level for Cal during the college football playoff. He was great in their win against Notre Dame, and he was more than serviceable against TCU, who of course ended up winning the national championship. He tested pretty well at the combine, cementing himself as a probable top 15 to 20 pick. And even going down the board some more, got some other possible first-rounders with Moses Munoz out of Northwestern. Very solid player, a lot of production during his time with the Wildcats. He played very well in this game, in particular against Oklahoma, who's got 3 or 4 future first-rounders on that defensive line. He's a good athlete. He tested well at the combine, and I think he could be a possible fringe first-rounder. Evan Smith from Penn State has really seen his stock go up. I think he's probably going to end up somewhere on day 2. Smith had a great senior season at Penn State, and he performed quite well at the combine. Honestly, I don't know why his stock isn't higher. I think he's a really, really good prospect and could very well be a player the Titans look at on the second day of the draft. There are some solid day 3 guys. I think Alex Sarkisian out of Georgia is pretty solid, along with Carnell Landry from Tennessee. As we move over to the defensive line, Javari Baker is a raw player, but he's got a lot of physical tools to be very good. He declared for the draft after a pretty solid redshirt sophomore season. He was an All-American as a freshman. This is a guy who's a little bit raw as a pass rusher, but he's a really good run defender, and he has shown signs as a pass rusher. He tore up the combine, the 4.5 40 and a 4.47 at the pro day. So yeah, this kid's a total freak show, and if he can develop a little bit more consistency as a pass rusher, this guy could be an all-pro. But he's got a long ways to go. I think Adai Awar from Notre Dame is a much safer prospect, but his ceiling is a lot lower. I don't think this is going to be an all-pro type of player, but I do think he's going to be a good starter really as soon as he steps into an NFL organization, and I think he's going to be a good starter for quite a while. Very steady player with Notre Dame. He's not a freak athlete. Now, he tested pretty solid at the Combine, and I think he will probably be a top 15 pick. So do you value ceiling or floor? That's really the decision between Baker and Award. You got some good depth players down the board as we move over to right end. I think Gilbert Smith will most likely be the top edge rusher off the board. It very well could be Baker or Awar, but I think Gilbert Smith's a better prospect than both of them. Gilbert Smith is a great athlete. The production is absolutely there. He's got a wide array of pass rush moves. His numbers as a senior are a little bit underwhelming, but he got double teamed on so many reps. This is a guy who is a physical freak. He tested extremely well at the Combine. It got a little overshadowed with how well Javari Baker did, but don't get it twisted. Gilbert Smith is a total freak. Justin Osefu out of Washington State really had a breakout season. This is a guy who I think is going to be more of a guy who doesn't have his hand in the dirt. I think although he played in a 4-3 at college, I would rather see him in a 3-4 scheme like what the Titans run in the NFL, because he doesn't really have enough play strength, in my opinion, to really have his hand in the dirt. 6'4", 253 pounds. Maybe he gains 20 pounds of muscle. I think that'd be a pretty good idea within the first couple years of his NFL career. It might limit his athleticism a little bit, but I think him being a little bit stronger could be pretty good. But other than that, I really like him, and I think he should probably find his way in the late first round. Got some solid middle-of-the-pack guys with Ron McDevitt, Torian Mason, George Charbonnet, Clark, Blackman, Woods. Of that group, I'm most intrigued by George Charbonnet II out of Idaho. He had a big season this year at the University of Idaho, and yeah, they don't play the greatest of competition in the Mountain West, but he still had a fantastic season. He's a really impressive athlete. His stock has dipped a little bit since the end of the season. Reports have said he hasn't interviewed all that well within NFL organizations, so there might be some character issues with him, but he's a really talented player who I think probably ends up in the second round. Let's move over to the big fellas inside at defensive tackle. We've got two guys who are likely going to go in the first round with this group, being Hercules Oceanus and Udo Afolabi, two players who have seen their stock go up with big performances in the college football playoff. Hercules Oceanus was really good in Ohio State's lone playoff game against Florida, where, yes, they lost, but certainly not at the fault of Oceanus, who was a disruptor up the middle. I think he's pretty versatile. You can put him at nose tackle, or you can put him more of as a 3-tech, so I think this is a guy who can do a multitude of different things with his 6'8" frame. I wish he was a little bit bigger, though. He's only 282 pounds. I think Udo Afolabi should probably donate some of his weight to Oceanus. Afolabi, on the other hand, is maybe a little bit too big, and it limits what he can do. So I think he's going to be more of a nose tackle in the NFL. He's not a guy who's going to put up big-time numbers, but a guy who's going to clog up rushing lanes and make it hard for teams to make plays up the middle and likely command 2 or even 3 offensive linemen blocking him at a time. His ceiling as a pass rusher is questionable, but in terms of pure value, he could be really good, kind of like a Jordan Davis type of player. K.L. Hamp recently declared for the draft out of Michigan. Really good run stopper. That's the name of his game. He's got to improve a little bit as a pass rusher, although he did show some flashes of that this season with the Wolverines. He did not test overly well at the Combine. He's not a phenomenal athlete. He's just a consistent guy in the middle who plugs rushing lanes. Another guy who won't put up big numbers, but is a disruptive force up the middle for your defense. The defensive tackle class isn't overly deep, but there are some good players here in day 3. Big Perk Thorncraw, Marcus Bowling, Fat Buff was dominant in the MAC championship for Central Michigan. Let's move over to linebacker now, starting with Asher Gonzalez out of San Diego State, a player who I think finds his way into the first round. Gonzalez was the best defensive player in the entire country this year, and I don't think it was very close. He led college football in tackles. He is a tackle for loss machine. He makes plays in the backfield. He lives in the backfield. He can get after the quarterback. He can make plays in coverage. He's not a world-class athlete, and he's a little bit of a tweener. I think he's more of an off-ball linebacker at the next level, but he's just so talented to where wherever you line him up, he's going to make plays. Arthur Balthazar is a pretty similar player to Gonzalez. He's a little bit more raw, but he's got a little bit more athleticism. So I think the ceiling with Balthazar is higher than it is with Asher Gonzalez, but he's just much much less proven. So again, this is a case of, do you prefer the athletic profile, do you prefer the ceiling, or do you prefer the guy who's a little bit more proven, which would be Gonzalez. Solid depth pieces down the board as we look more at middle linebackers. This is a really tight group. These first 5 or 6 guys could be ordered really in any which way. Right now, Ebenezer Rosen out of Florida State is at the top of the list. Really, really solid player. He's a big, hard-nosed, physical linebacker. He can make plays in the backfield. He can make plays in coverage. So I think his well-roundedness, along with his solid athletic frame for his size, is probably what's going to make him the top inside linebacker drafted. But there are a lot of guys right on his tail, including Raymar Beckett out of Notre Dame. When we last talked about Beckett, he was the top player at his position projected to go off the board. His stock has gone down a little bit, which is kind of a surprise. He didn't play all that well towards the end of the season, but he was really good in Notre Dame's lone playoff game against Cal, which says something because the rest of the team for Notre Dame played like garbage. He was solid at the combine as well, so I don't really see why his stock is going down. Maybe there's something we don't know. Jabari Towns is a pretty interesting player. He's profiled as an edge rusher. He doesn't really have a lot of great pass rushing moves, but he is really fluid. He knows how to move well in coverage. He's not the fastest per se, so he's probably a little bit better long-term as an edge rusher if you can develop some pass rushing moves and give him more play strength. He's a tweener, but I think he could be really good if he gained 20 or 30 pounds of muscle. R.J. Robinson out of Virginia Tech is a very fascinating player. He is thick. Pause. 6 foot, 247 pounds, yet he is so nimble as an athlete. He is quick, he's explosive. You've seen a lot of off-ball linebackers go early in the recent years, and the common characteristic is that they're all freaks. Guys like Devin White, Devin Bush, Patrick Queen, Kenneth Murray, guys like that. They're all unreal athletes. R.J. Robinson is just like those guys, but I think he's a smarter player than them, and I think he's going to be better than all those guys at the next level. DeAndre Herring is another player who is thick. Again, pause. 6'1", 256 pounds. This guy was a tackling machine for Clemson in the college football playoff. Really all over the field. He knows how to find the football, and that's an important skill as a linebacker. Micah McClure from Mississippi State's really solid as well. Very good pass rusher in terms of making plays on design blitzes. Batumba Afolabi was great in the playoff for TCU. His stock has gone up quite a bit. Devontae Turner Jr. is a very fascinating player out of Purdue. Holy Diablo, possible undrafted gem. Let's move over to right outside linebacker, where there's a lot of talent here, including Devin Banks out of Auburn. 6'2", 250 pounds, likely top 5 pick when it's all said and done. I don't think I would use a top 5 pick on him. I've got quite a few questions about his game. What is he going to do at the next level? Is he going to be an edge rusher, or is he going to play off the ball? Because I don't think he's got the pass rush moves and the play strength to be an edge rusher. He certainly has the explosiveness to do so, but I don't think he's got the quickness to be a pure off-ball linebacker, so you're going to have to figure it out with him. But his production at Auburn the last 2 years has been so impressive to where I think whoever does draft him will ultimately know how to use him. Rashawn Russell's a pretty talented player. Now, he is small, 6'1", 227 pounds, but he's a really smart player. He knows how to make plays in coverage. He's a solid run stopper as well. So, you're going to have to figure out how you're going to use him. Maybe you try him out back at safety even. I think he's got the positional versatility to do that. So another player who's a little bit more of a tweener, but if you use him right, he could be really good. Josiah Wake out of Texas has got a whole lot of upside. 6'7", 283 pounds. As a sophomore, he was one of the best pass rushers in the country. As a junior and senior, he didn't play as well, largely because teams really started to focus in on stopping him, and they did. He was a little bit better as a senior, and I think his athletic profiling is what will keep him in the first round, despite his disappointing play over the last couple of seasons. But, I mean, the kid's a total freak for his size, flat out. And I think his ceiling is higher, honestly, than any defensive player in this entire draft class. But there are some concerns. The guy has not played elite football over the last 2 seasons. Jaleel Joalham is a very solid player, 6'1", 250 pounds. This is a guy who's probably going to line up sort of as an off-the-ball linebacker, very good in the run game in particular. He's got to improve a little bit in coverage, so for now, at least early in his career, he might not consistently be on the field on third down, but he's got the athleticism to be really good in coverage down the line, so I think the ceiling with him is quite high. Spencer Gotham from Oregon's a really solid player. Jason Gatewood as well. The player I want to talk about here, though, is Kanan Dean from Alabama. This kid is fascinating. In his 5-year career at Alabama, he has started 0 games. He is a pure special teamer. So why is he getting looks in the NFL? Well, he's actually a really talented basketball player. He's been a good role player for the Crimson Tide over the past few seasons. He did not play basketball this year since he's been training for the NFL. But the reason why teams like him is this. The kid's a total freak. I mean, he tested in first for pretty much every drill amongst linebackers. The ceiling is sky high. The problem is he doesn't really know how to play football, so he's probably not going to get drafted, but it's hard not to take a chance on somebody with his athleticism. As it stands now, Jameer Jefferson Jr. is the #1 ranked prospect overall in the entire draft class, even higher than Cade Hutchinson. The reason? Jameer Jefferson is the best football player in this draft class. He's an unbelievable cover corner. He's great in man. He's great in zone. He's got elite ball skills. He's good in the run game. He's a better tackler than any corner in this draft. He's a really high character kid. What's there not to like about him? This kid's got a shot to be an all-pro corner on day one. He's a little bit short at 5'11", but he plays big, and that's really the only weakness to his game. Other than that, he's literally a flawless prospect. I cannot see him going lower than 2. He very well could be the #1 pick to Minnesota. If not, there's no way he falls past the Arizona Cardinals at 2. So he'll be either in Minnesota or Arizona when it's all said and done. Besides Jefferson, there are plenty of other good corners, including Shad Swisher. He's 6'5". Yeah, he is tall, and he is really good as well. He has really improved throughout his career at Georgia. His ball skills have gotten a lot better. He's continued to be more and more consistent in coverage, and he's really athletic. I think there is a real argument for him to be a top 10 pick in this year's draft when it's all said and done, and he proved that at the Combine. 4.34 40-yard dash, 4.29 at his pro day. Donovan Bambo out of Florida, his stock has been on the rise really over the last 3 to 4 months consistently. He declared for the draft after his junior season, in which he was really solid for Florida. He played very well in the college football playoff. He performed very well at the Combine, and it really looks like he's going to end up as a first-round pick when it's all said and done. This is a guy who I think is going to be very versatile. You can put him in the slot. You can put him outside. He's going to be a great pro at the next level. Jamison Anderson out of Missouri is also very talented. He's got some of the best ball skills in this class, along with being 6'2", really solid in coverage. So that was Quinn Crew, the wide receiver from Texas A&M. Jamison Anderson locked him up in this game. Here's Benjamin Cannon, another really good receiver, and Anderson covers him like a blanket and ends the play with an interception. 4.32 40-yard dash at the Combine, 4.31 at his pro day. He's consistent in coverage. He's a total freak show. He's going to be a stud at the next level. Caleb Kaufman has seen his stock really go up as well over the last few months. He was one of the best defensive players in the college football playoff, period. He was dominant in Oregon's win against Michigan. He played really well in the game they lost against Clemson, and he's been really good throughout the season. He tested extremely well at the Combine. He completely surpassed everybody's expectations in terms of athletic testing, so he's another guy who's really earned his way into the first round. A lot of solid day 2 guys: Brown, Benedetto, Johnson, Kroger, Amari Sanders. I really want to look at Costello Benedetto in particular, the Jim Thorpe Award winner. He was the best defensive back in college football this season. He picked off 7 passes. He's not a total freak athlete. He's really fast, but I think he's more faster than quick, per se. Nonetheless, I think he's going to be a very good player at the next level, and as we move down the board, there are plenty of talented corners here. I really want to look at Jeremiah McDuffie in particular. He's a raw player. He's got a long ways to go, but he's 6'3", he's tall, and he's fast. And in terms of looking at corners on day 3, your best bet is for big guys who are athletic. Look at the Seahawks drafting Tariq Woolen. That's a perfect example. Woolen was raw, but he's big, he was athletic. The Seahawks took a chance, and obviously it has paid off in a big way. There are some interesting players down the board in terms of undrafted guys as well as we move over to safety. Really, really good safety class. Much better than last year's group as we start with Atanase Gothero out of Ball State, who makes a case to be the highest drafted safety in the modern era. Currently, the late, great Sean Taylor and Eric Berry are the 2 highest drafted safeties ever, being the number 5 pick. That's some really, really darn good company. I don't think it's likely that Gothero ends up in the top 5, but I think there's a shot. He's got great ball skills. He's really athletic. In my opinion, he should have been the Jim Thorpe Award. He's been the best defensive back in college football this year, and he looks to be the first Ball State first-rounder in the modern draft era. And he's not just going to go in the first round. He's going to go in the top 10 because he's one of the best safety prospects we've seen in a while with his athleticism, his consistency, and his ball skills. I.T. Thomas is another ridiculous athlete. He does not quite have the production that Athanase Gothero has, but he's been really solid in his own right with the Texas Longhorns, and another guy who I think ends up as a top half of the first round guy. Most years he'd be the top safety off the board, but with Athanase Gothero here, that's not going to be the case. Nonetheless, he still tested really well at the combine, cementing himself as a first round lock, and a guy who I think goes somewhere in the teens. Johnny Lee Farr from Florida had a phenomenal combine, and he could go in the first round as well. This is a player who has produced at a high level for Florida. He had this big pick six against Florida State to pretty much cement Florida into the college football playoff. Of course, Florida ended up making it into the top four. Farr dominated the combine, 4.35, 40-yard dash. He ran a 4.32 at his pro day. So, yeah, this kid's a freak, along with great production during his career at Florida. There's some solid gems here. Tama Messe, Tanu Numpea, Dominic Alexander, Keontae Sparks, Ramiro Marsh, Baye Diaria, all very solid players. And then as we go to strong safety, a player who has really risen up the board is Ace Lager-Jur out of Texas A&M. He declared after his junior season, and he wowed scouts at the combine. This kid is a complete freak. Now, he's got a long ways to go in his development. He actually had the worst season of his career this year as a junior. But, yeah, this kid's a ridiculous athlete. 4.43 40 at his combine, 4.36 at his pro day. He can move. The last player we're going to talk about is another player who declared after his junior season, that being Ronnie Dayton Quinn from Clemson, the converted linebacker. He has played off-ball linebacker for Clemson the past few seasons, and he's been one of the best players on their defense. However, with his small frame at 5'11", 225, he's moving over to safety. I think at the combine, he proved that he has the athleticism and quickness to play safety, but he's still probably going to go undrafted just because he's still got a ways to go in coverage at the safety position. So there you go. That's the draft class. Really, really talented group of players. Now that we've gone through every position and a lot of these players, let's look at some mock drafts, shall we? As of now, again, we have picks 25 and 27 in the first round. We've got 2 second-rounders as well. So let's see what Madden predicts is going to happen. This first mock draft was made at the end of the regular season before the national championship game where Kate Hutchinson laid an egg. There are some surprises here, including the Texans picking 2 right tackles. I don't think that's going to happen. I think at least one of those picks ends up being a quarterback. The second quarterback off the board doesn't go until pick 21, which I think, no. I think we're going to see 3 in the top 10. They've got all the QBs going late, with us getting Kane Sanders, the Broncos getting Isaiah Gordon, and us getting Sidney McDonald. Apparently, you can't have enough quarterbacks, so they think we're going to draft 2. Here's the second mock draft made right before free agency. This time they had Blunt going at 12 to Washington. I don't see a world where Washington passes on a quarterback. They had the Falcons getting Sidney McDonald, the Bucks getting Gordon, and they had us drafting 2 position players of Chance Upshaw and Asher Gonzalez. I think that's very realistic, but what's not realistic is Javari Baker at 26 and Athanase Gothero at 24. I think both of those players end up in the top 10. Madden really seems to think the Vikings will still go Kate Hutchinson with the number 1 pick despite his struggles in the playoffs. This time they have Gothero going in the top 10. They still have Javari Baker going all the way here in the back end of the first round. They still have Blunt going at 21 for whatever reason. And they have us drafting Sidney McDonald and Moses Munoz. I don't think it's unrealistic to think the Titans could draft a quarterback in the first round, but I think Madden thinks these QBs are going to go way lower than they're actually going to go. I made my own mock draft, a 7-round mock here for the Titans. With our first rounders, I was getting Mario Hummeler, the tight end out of TCU, and Asher Gonzalez, the linebacker from San Diego State. 2 very good players who are going to fill holes and start really right away. In the second round, I was getting Kobe Henderson and then George Charbonnet II. I think the Titans will invest a somewhat high pick in a running back just because this running back class is so loaded. In the fourth round, I was getting Sterling Yorkshire. I think at some point in this draft, the Titans will draft a quarterback. And Sterling Yorkshire is a winner. He won the college football playoff MVP for a reason. And then with our other day 3 picks, I was getting Alex Sarkisian, the offensive tackle out of Georgia, Motumbe Afolabi, the linebacker from TCU. So that is 3 TCU players for the Titans. Hot Rod Pryor, I think, would be a really fun pick, the wide receiver out of USC. And then for the last pick, Montrell Suggs, the center out of Georgia, along with a long list of possible undrafted free agents. We had a number of undrafted guys play for us last season, most notably quarterback Garrett Pace. We've got one more order of business before we wrap up today, and that is private workouts. We get to invite 3 players into the facility to give a private workout to. I really want to look at 3 players who I think we could seriously consider drafting, particularly with one of our early picks. I want to get those 2 first-rounders right. I'd love to add 2 legitimate starters. The first player we're going to invite is Gilbert Smith. He would be a trade-up candidate, but if he falls out of the top 10, the Titans really could look to move up for him, along with Asher Gonzalez and Ace Legardeur. So really focusing on the defensive side of the ball with our invites. That'll wrap up the episode. Hope you guys enjoyed. I know it was a long one, but there are a lot of players I wanted to cover today. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Next episode will be the 2024 NFL Draft, which I plan on premiering this Friday. Peace out. Tighten up.